On June 9th, Anjali Nath of Breathe, California trained San Francisco Head Start Health Program Directors on our All About Asthma curriculum for child care providers. Anjali's goal was to educate the participants about the basics of asthma and hope that they would become a resource for questions regarding asthma in their respective communities. Many of the participants expressed frustration at their inability to answer basic questions concerning asthma.
There isn't really a lot about asthma built into my roles, but then sometimes I'll just get a question and I usually go, oh, ask Marcy. I don't really know about that. So I hope that maybe I could help more when I get questions.
Anjali presented a brief description of what happens to the airways during an asthma episode.
So during an asthma episode, airways become swollen. So just to think about this, the airways become swollen. The muscles tighten around the airways and more mucus is produced. So I will show you. Nice and clear, right? All fine, there's space to breathe, no problem. So now you see what's starting to happen is that you're starting to get redness and swelling. So when an airway is swelling, where does it have to go? In, right? So that automatically starts to close up the airway, lessening how much space you have to breathe air in and out. Okay, so that's happening on the inside, and at the same time you have that mucus production that could potentially happen, which is again taking up more space, making the airway even smaller. Okay, and then at the same time you have these muscles that are wrapped around your airway, and those muscles can actually start to contract. So that means from all angles, your body is doing everything it can to restrict your breathing. Okay, and that is what happens when people are exposed to things that trigger their asthma.
She later had the participants breathe through a thin straw so they could experience what breathing feels like for those with asthma.
Imagine this happening for a much longer period of time and very fast without any warning, or even gradually, right? This is something that if you can imagine, if you're experiencing this, it can be quite scary, right? Essentially, you are cutting off your air supply. Your air supply is being cut off, and that is when you see someone going or hunching, or their ribs are popping, or their neck is stretched like that. It really means they're very much having a hard time breathing.
She pointed out that providers should be on the lookout for triggers that may be the impetus for an asthma episode.
Coughing. That does not mean that when a child coughs, you start worrying that they have asthma. But as we were talking about before, that if you see that this is happening even over the course of a week and it's been persistent, or it happens every time Johnny goes out to play in that specific area. Maybe there's something he's allergic to over there. It happens every time the kids go running. Okay, maybe there's something to consider in terms of what he's sensitive to exercise, so on. Wheezing is where you can actually hear a sound in the chest when you're breathing.
Anjali went on to describe several other signs for providers to be on the lookout for while working with children. Funding for this training was generously provided by Wells Fargo.